It's time for the Shelf Respect book tag. Welcome to the depths. Hello, welcome to Reading from the Depths. My name is Lecton. Thanks for spending some time with me. Today I'm going to do a book tag. This is the Shelf Respect book tag. This was originally created by Richard at Richard History Lit, and I saw this a few different places. I saw it done by Pat over at Book Chat with Pat, and I saw it done by Robert over at Robert G, Reader of Books, and I wasn't tagged explicitly, but I thought it would be a fun one to do. So this tag has 10 prompts plus an 11th prompt that is to tag others. So let's get on with it. First one, how do you organize your books on the shelves? This is what I thought would be a little bit interesting. I have my books organized first off by my sacred texts or my religious books, and then my non-sacred texts. So my sacred texts are organized by a couple different methods. The first one is traditional Tibetan texts, which are called pechas or pairings, are these loose leaf texts that are long. They're like this, and they are kind of annoying to use. I prefer not to use them, but when you're doing memorization or you're doing recitation, they can be useful because they open up very easily and you can keep track of where you are. So these are traditional Tibetan texts. Those have their own special place because they're long, they're weird, they don't fit into a normal bookcase in any sort of easy way. Aside from those, it's very common to have what are called sungbums or collected works. So any given scholar or master will have all of his texts collected together. And so I keep all of my collected works separate. So over my right shoulder here, in the back, those are all the collected works of all of the Dalai Lamas. And then behind that orange curtain are all of the collected works of Tsongkhapa, who is the founder of the Gelug tradition, as well as his two direct disciples. Those are just collected works of all of their texts. Then there are also a few other sungbums. The first Panchen Lama, Panchen Losung Jeki Gelsen is there, and then Panchen Sanam Jakpa, and a few other important teachers. So I have all their collected works set apart. And now, apart from the collected works, or the sungbums, I have my text separated by subject. So especially at the monastery, we have 5 main topics that we study. So for the first 3 years, we're studying an introductory set of topics. The next 7 years, we're studying a set of topics that come under the auspice or the heading of Paramita. This is really focused on Abhisamaya Alamkara as the main text, and then a bunch of commentaries based on that. And then for 4 years, we studied Madhyamaka texts, and this is largely focused on studying the Mula Madhyamaka Avatara, and as well as commentaries on that. And then for 3 years, we study Vinaya or monastic code and discipline. And then for 2 years, we study Abhidharma or Buddhist metaphysics and cosmology. And then over the winter sessions, we study Pramana or Buddhist logic. And so those 6 categorizations, I have any texts which include root texts as well as commentaries, as well as anything slightly pertaining to it, are set up into those 6 different sections. You can't see them, they're all on the other side of the camera, but my whole wall is a bookshelf with maybe 600 books or so that are all related to that, all Tibetan language books. And then outside of those categories, I have another section of just sacred texts that is a mixed bag and is a grab bag. And a little bit of this, a little bit of that. They aren't used for my official monastery studies. They're just used for my own personal study and practice. And then I also have a section on Tantra. So any texts related to Tantra, whether they are practice texts or they are commentary texts or root texts, that's its own section. And then lastly, I have a section for English language Dharma texts. So anything that is either a commentary or a translation into English, I have a separate section for that. And now for my non-sacred texts, my non-religious texts, I separate my bookcases into nonfiction and fiction first. And then nonfiction is just done by the author's last name. And then within the fiction books, those are obviously also done by author's last name. And then within that, if I have more than one book from an author, if I have a lot of books, such as Stephen King, I have almost all Stephen King books that he's published, those are by publication year. But everything else outside of that is done by the title of the book. And then the exception are when I have series. So series all get clumped together, even if they weren't published consecutively, or if their titles are a little wonky, they get put in order. Usually wherever the first book in the series was published, that whole series will go there. And so that is how it hypothetically works. I don't always have as much space as I want, not here in India. And then back in the States, my bookcases are at my sister's house. So I set it up how I like, but then, it's not a lot of space, and space is shared with other people. So you kind of get what you can get. That is the ideal situation though. So separating religious texts and non-religious texts, religious texts separated by category, and then non-religious texts, fiction, non-fiction, and then by author name, and then within that, by either title, publication year, or grouping, or series group, depending. Next question is, have you ever merged your collection with your significant other? No, I haven't, but having so many of my books stored at my sister's house, they do kind of get mixed in with her books, especially the books I buy her are books that I often like as well. So when she's done reading them, they end up on my shelf. So there is a little bit of mixing there. But in general, no, I haven't mixed my collection with anyone else's. Number 3, do you write your name and or the price paid in your books? Generally, no. If I receive a book, especially a religious text specifically for a teaching that I'm attending, then I'll often write my name in it as well as the teaching I'm attending, where I'm attending it, and the date that I'm attending it. But other than that, I tend not to write my name in books. I suppose if I were loaning my books to people, I might write my name in it just so they remembered, but otherwise, not really. And I don't write the price. I think that's kind of insignificant. So no, I don't write the price. Name on occasion, but not a general practice unless there's a special occasion for the book, or if the book was a gift from someone, I might write their name in it and when I received it. Next, you keep all of the books you've read or only the most cherished. So when I moved to India, I gave away almost all of my physical books, the vast majority of them. And so now the only physical books I buy are ones that I really want to read, I want to keep, and I want to be able to share with others. So if I buy a book that I haven't read yet and I don't enjoy it that much, I will give it away either to the library or I'll find someone else that has interest in it. But in general, the physical books that I have copies of are because I want that book and or I want to be able to share that book with my family and with my friends. So those are the only books I have physical copies of. I'm selective about which books I buy, which means I don't give many books away. But if I do end up with a book that isn't something I'm going to want to return to again and again, or isn't something I want to share with my family and friends, then I will give it away or I'll bring it to a library. There just isn't enough space to keep all the books otherwise. Number 5, does the style and quality of your bookshelves and or bookcases matter? And then it kind of goes to number 6. Do you have any gripes or complaints about bookcase construction? And for me, both these questions, the answer is I don't really care what they look like as long as they are sturdy. And the bookcases that hold all my sacred texts behind me, I built those all simply out of plywood, but then I built them so they fit directly into my space. One thing about sacred texts is that we think it's disrespectful to store them below your waist. So these bookshelves, everything from the waist down is just storage, and everything above that is where I actually keep the texts. You can see behind me, these ones are just normal bookcases. One of them is a stainless steel storage rack that you'd put like in your garage or in your shed, but it works. The one behind it is another bookcase that I built. And then over my left shoulder, these are some of my fiction books. There's more you can't see directly behind my head and off to the side. Those are quite cheap quality bookcases, and I'd prefer not to have either particle board or pressed board. I want either plywood or something that is going to hold up, but those are pretty small. They're not very wide. There's no real concern about those shelves bowing in the center. So what's most important for me is that they are going to hold up to whatever abuse I kind of put them through, and they're going to be able to actually hold whatever weight of books I put on them. So I do like having shelves that have a flat top because that gets to be an extra shelf. Other than that, I don't have any real opinion. I suppose in an ideal situation, I would like to have shelves that have glass fronts, so to keep the books dust free, but that isn't real practical for at least where I am right now. So I take what I can get, but I'm not too picky. If it does the job of holding up my books and it's well sized, so I can see all the books and the books fit in a nice way, and there isn't a lot of empty or wasted space, then that's all I really need. Next, number 7, do you ever stack your books horizontally? Only due to lack of space. Right now, actually, a bunch of my books, all my Stephen King books, are not only stacked horizontally, but they're also doubled up just because there isn't enough space in these bookcases. I don't keep books permanently here in India. When I go back to America, any book I've read, I bring it with me to America, I leave it there, and any books I happen to have there that I haven't read yet, I bring back here in India. So I'm constantly switching back and forth because they're books that I can't get here in India, so I'll purchase them and have them sent to my home in America waiting for me, so when I can get there to read them. Right now, my Stephen King collection, I've read every book Stephen King has released, but I don't have hard copies of all of them. And so I'm slowly building up my Stephen King collection. And that's why I have so many Stephen King books here, but they're books I've already read. So the next time I go to the US, I will bring them with me. But for now, they are double stacked and horizontally stacked. Ideally, that is not a useful situation just because it's hard to read the books and it is hard to get books that you need if they're underneath a stack or a pile. So again, ideally, no, but sometimes reality interferes with your idealist expectations. and you do what you have to do. What are your 5 favorite jackets or covers? And then what are your 5 most disliked jackets or covers and why? Those are questions 8 and 9. So I don't really have a strong opinion about the covers of books. I mean, I am attracted to some books. I think they have nice covers, nice artwork, but in general, it doesn't matter to me that much. A few covers of recent books that I have or series that I have that I do like. These are the first 2 books in the Tyrant Philosophers series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And I think these are really nice in that the covers actually have a lot going on, but you have to look at it to see all of them. So this is the first book, The City of Last Chances. And you can see there's a lot of these little images that have to do with events that happen in the story, but they don't jump out at you in the book. So I really like that. And I don't know if you can tell on the camera, but this is actually gold. It's shiny and metallic, which makes it pop out. And then throughout the whole image, there are these gold highlights that pop out in that way. And then the second book is very similar, The House of Open Wounds. And again, you have all these little pictures like this giant robot or this war dinosaur. And then this one is silver. So all the silver is metallic. And you can't really see, but up here, there's a bunch of small little silver accents that pop out. So I think those are quite nice. I appreciate those. The other ones that I do like are the SF Masterworks series. I just think they're very simple. I like that they all have very simple, their labeling and their graphic design is simple like this. Then you can see that both the title as well as the author really clearly. And then the covers generally are nice. This is James Tiptree Jr., Her Smoke Rose Up Forever, you know, Hyperion, and then Ursula K. Le Guin, The Left Hand of Darkness. So I think the covers, they don't all wow me, but I do like the overall design of them and the vibe. And so I think that is a nice series. Now, as for books I don't like, or covers I don't like, I think I'm in agreement with every other booktuber ever, which is I don't like tie-in books from TV shows or movies. I think that's really frustrating. I understand why. People need to sell books. So, you know what? Like, marketers have to do what they have to do. I appreciate that. I don't really want any of those in my collection. Aside from that, one thing that is sticking out to me that right now I'm not a big fan of is, the new Stephen King books that were published, the newest publication by Hodder, at least in the UK. Their spines all look like this. And it's nice to have these solid color spines. I think people are really liking this solid rainbow. But it is so hard to tell what the books are because the titles are in this very small print right in the center. And for the books that have longer titles, it's almost impossible. Like all of the Dark Tower series, you have to get like a magnifying glass to figure out which book is which. And that's really frustrating. The covers are fine. The covers, I could take them or leave them. Some of them are nice. That's Cujo, Pet Cemetery. Some of the covers are quite nice, but the spines are really, really frustrating and annoying. If you compare them just to the old mass market paperbacks, these spines, I appreciate them a lot more. You still get big King branding, but you can read the titles much more easily. There's a little image or a little picture on the sides. So the display from the spines is much nicer that way. So I'd much prefer a lot of these old mass market paperbacks or the old editions than these new editions, which I suppose look nice, the solid color. But, if I can't read what the title is, then what's the point? And then the last question is there such a thing as too many books? And of course, everyone's going to say no, there's no such thing, but that is not true. And I know that's not true because my late partner, his brother, collected so many books that his house became condemned. There's a photo of him in the newspaper where multiple rooms in his house had books stacked 7 feet tall, and they filled up the whole room, and there was one path to walk from one end of the room to the other. So he wasn't reading any of these books, and I have no clue why he was collecting them. He just would go to garage sales and yard sales and library sales and just buy books and then fill his house with them. And it got to the point where literally his house was condemned because he had so many books, they were threatening the structural foundations of his house. And so, yes, there can be too many books. He had to get rid of all of his books, or most of them. And then I think he threw them away. So it just shows that he didn't care about books. I have no clue why he was collecting them. This all happened before I met my partner, so I wasn't involved in this situation at all, because obviously he could have given them to a library. That would have been much better. But in any case, you can have too many books. When the weight of your books makes your house no longer structurally sound and causes it to be condemned, then that is too many books, unfortunately. Okay, I think that is all the questions. The last one is tag some people. This tag has been going around for a while, so I'll take the easy way out and I'll say if anyone is watching this, then you are tagged. So you get to learn a little bit about my bookkeeping habits. I'd love to hear your answers down in the comments. For now, I'll say thank you for spending some time with me today. I appreciate you. Please be kind to yourselves, take care of each other, and go slowly.